Hi everyone. So today for my final exam, I'm gonna be discussing about the debate with Frank Zappa on Crossfire 1986. So first of all, let's have a little context of why this debate started in any way. So we're talking about the 1980s. So we already know that a lot of movements and young people start making things that were different from last generations, and a lot of people that still was a lot of, that were very conservatism were like kind of struggling with all these new ideas and all these new type of songs and clothing and all this stuff. Like it was a whole cultural movement. So in this case specifically, we're going to talk about mostly about music. So, and well, mostly not just music, but music censorship. So, as I already said, we already know what was kind of going on in the 1980s. And well, in the mid 1980s, a group of mostly parents start gathering, and they called themselves PMRS. And well, basically they just wanted more control over music because they thought that the lyrics that were coming out were just explicit, and like they were not correct. There was not good on that songs or that music. They were full of inappropriate lyrics. So they were asking for more control over the songs. And they want like to have labels and not letting everyone, or like not letting producers to share their songs that talked about sexuality or violence or stuff like that, all these inappropriate topics. They didn't want that music to even like come out so that anyone could hear it in the radio. So this was like the part of the opposition, kind of, if we can see it that way. But there was also other part that, in this case, in the debate, the one that's talking like for all the other part that didn't have a problem with the music, and it was Frank Zappa. And he argues that this parenting help, or like this kind of control, was not going to be just for parents. It was becoming more like a government control. So this could lead to censorship. So that's what he was arguing mostly. And that was what a lot of people on this side thought, that this control was not going to stay there. Like it was going to become a huge, big thing about the government's power in the expression. So, in this case, we already can see like the position of Zappa. So why does he think this kind of like control can threat democracy? Well, it was very clear. He really thought that this was not just about like what you liked and what you didn't like. It was about what the government would like for most of the people, that again was still people that were very conservatives. So the government would choose, and they again would turn into kind of censorship. It would become something like the government would choose what's the truth, the government would choose what's correct to the citizens to listen, you know. So you can really see what this could lead to. I feel like it is very obvious, and I do agree with him. I feel like giving the government that power, like we need you to control this kind of stuff, it's just the first step. But when you give the government that type of power, then the government could start doing it with everything, with the newspaper, with the news on TV, with the TV shows, with everything that anyone wants to share. If the government thinks that it is not appropriate, then the government could just censorship that kind of stuff. So I feel like it is a really like reasonable argument. And then what role should government do have, or if it doesn't, or if it shouldn't have like a role in regulating the artists and what the artists share? Well, I feel like it's more something that the parents should take care of, and that's something that Zappa talks about in the debate. This is more like a criteria and more like how the parents want to raise their children. So the government shouldn't have a like really involved in that, because it's a at the end it's about each one's beliefs, you know. And but there was another in the debate. There is another man called Lofton, and he completely differs with Zappa, because his most of his argument uh, resume just comes to thinking that these kind of lyrics, of inappropriate lyrics, kind of are like improving ideas that are not correct. He even mentions incest, like the songs, some of their songs are talking about incest, and he says like, do you think that's good? Do you think we should like motivate people to commit incest? And I like when Zappa says like, no, it's not motivating, it's not like telling them to do that, it's just a song, it's just words. And I really like when he says that we're talking about words, because it's very important. I think there is a very good point, because I mean there are books from like centuries old, and if you read some of them, they also are kind of explicit, but they're just words, they're just book, it's just art. So why should the government kind of regulate art, or what the art is going to be? But these are kind of the two views, like the point of views on this case. Zappa is more like on freedom and like letting people to express themselves, and Lofton is more on the way that morality and what is correct and what is incorrect to people to keep consuming. I also like that you can see the really marked position of Zappa when he even calls these kind of decisions, like he said that it was leading to becoming a fascist country, because he started saying that making government control, as I said, it could just lead to censorship with a lot of things, not just with songs, but with the news, with the information that Americans can get from, you know. So I really think you can see in the debate that he mentions a lot of this stuff. He also mentions a lot of the Constitution. He refers to the First Amendment, and yeah, I mean, like, I feel like he really have a lot of arguments, and he really knows why he thinks what he thinks. And lastly, in what ways does this debate still resonate today in discussions about media and art censorship? Well, for me, it's very clear. I mean, there's still a lot of debates of this. I think like maybe today is growing a lot, because it's very easy to have access to information. So a lot of people and still a lot of parents are still very concerned of what information should be given to the people, because there are a lot of kids seeing stuff that maybe they shouldn't see. There's a lot of misinformation, and all this stuff kind of still is a concern. But I've always believed that this is not about really the information or the videos or the video games or stuff like that. It's more about the people we're raising, the people we're teaching. What are we teaching to them? I feel like critical thinking has been almost vanished from our societies. We're letting people to believe everything. We're not trying and training our brains to really think and really try to look more into stuff. So we really should improve that, rather than trying to censor stuff or trying to stop showing some stuff. We should be responsible of our actions, of what we're teaching to our kids, what we're teaching to our little sister, what we're teaching on school. It's really easy to get information today, it is, but we shouldn't. I really think we should still be more concerned of what we as individuals are taking from, than what they are giving us. I don't know if I make myself explain, But yeah, it's my responsibility right now. I'm already an adult, so right now it's my responsibility what information I'm taking, what is my point of view, what am I going to uh, learn, and what I'm going to take from what I'm seeing. The information is there for you to take it or leave it. It's your decision, and we should be responsible of that. We shouldn't um, ask the government to come in and tells us, oh, you know what, you can't see that because that's wrong. It's about, it's kind of like part of our individualistic characteristics of us being free to see things we want, and also free to take the responsibility of what I'm gonna do with that information that I'm having. So I feel like it's still a very concerned topic, but I do think that we should focus more on making better our critical thinking than worrying of how many censorships should the internet and video games and TV should have.